Well, welcome back for another amazing episode of Transcending Stuttering. My name is Uri Schneider, and it's an honor and a privilege. I'm not that funny, but if my career goes down, I have been told that I have an ability to make people laugh, and I find that in the line of work I do, which is a cross between um, lighting humans on fire, not in a physical and a concrete way, but from the inside, lighting their lives on fire, educating people to know and understand more about things that are kind of confusing and enigmatic, helping people champion each other, and also taking things that can sometimes be really heavy and bringing some light. And again, I say that as a double entendre. With all that being said, so I've been told like sometimes I can say some things that are half funny, but I've never been on a stage with a comedian. So I'm a little nervous this morning to be the opening act for our headliner, who is the one and only Nina G. And I'm gonna give Nina the intro that she sent me and then riff on that just a little bit and jump right in, but you're in the presence of greatness. This is an East Coast, West Coast collab. I'll tell you a little bit about Nina. She's out in Oakland, California, and it's a big treat to have her this morning. She is a comedian. She's a professional speaker. She's also the author of Stutterer Interrupted, the comedian who almost didn't happen, and Once Upon a Time, Accommodation, a book about learning disabilities. And I'll just say it's super exciting to say that because I remember the conference where Nina told me, my book is coming out. I'm so excited. I said, sign me up. So really cool to say, here she is, there's the product placement. And someone made a funny comment, which I don't want to repeat for the risk of getting political, but very funny that in the image headshot that she sent me, it's upside down. And you could think of someone else who held a book for placement in a funny upside down manner. But there she is, Nina G. And she's been featured in and on everything from NPR's 51%, BBC's Ouch, Psychology Today, TEDx, multiple daytime talk shows. I'll even say I'm following Howard Stern. I didn't know that, but she's been on the Howard Stern show and even on a Stuttering John podcast. By the way, if Stuttering John is listening, I have private messaged him and invited him on for an episode. I'm waiting for an answer. Happy to have him anytime. Nina shares her wit and wisdom with corporations, with colleges, libraries, and conferences and community events. Her no-nonsense approach to disability awareness and acceptance helps to bring institutions, communities, and individuals to deepen their understanding of the disability and bring practical approaches to making a more inclusive society. Like, is there anything more important than that? Nina's currently working on her third book on the history of stand-up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I would just add that she missed on her bio that she was also part of the inauguration ceremonies for our president, Joe Biden. Again, no politics. He's the president of the United States, and he's a person who stutters. And Nina was one of the people with my other buddy, Braden Harrington, to be on the lineup. So it's with a big honor that I pass the torch to our headline act, since I didn't get too many laughs on that one. Share, comment, post your questions. This is going to be a great one. Fasten your seatbelts wherever you are. The one and only Nina G.
Thank you. And I do have to make one little correction in the intro. It's the Howard Stern 100 News. So I was never on the Howard Stern show. A lot of times people think that, like, when they don't see me, they think that I was the girl in the bikini who sold hot dogs on the side of the road, because her name was also Nina. And so, no, it's just a Howard Stern 100 News, which I was totally happy with anyway.
Totally. Well, here's a little disclosure. I'm borderline dyslexic. So as I was reading that line, the way it appeared on the page, here we are on disability awareness and openness. It was only late in high school that I realized it was taking me a heck of a long time to get through that textbook. And at the end, I remembered all the pictures, but I couldn't remember a word I read. So I turned to my friend Stevie, who's a buddy of mine till today. He's a real estate attorney. He reads contracts all the time. I don't. I read people all the time. And back in high school, I said, hey, Stevie, how long did it take you to read that page in that science textbook? And he's like, about a minute. I'm like, there's something up, because it's taken me like 2 or 3 minutes. And by the time I get to the end, I can't remember the thing I read before. So full disclosure, when I was reading it, it was narrow font. If you are borderline dyslexic or full-on dyslexic like me, have trouble reading, larger font, wider margins, very helpful. Fewer words in front of your face can be helpful, or for others, having more in front of your face, but adapt in whatever way you need. But I thank you for that correction. I certainly wouldn't have wanted anyone to think you were that person. You're Nina G, this person.
I'm this person, yes. And also, I have dyslexia too, which is why I read a lot of stuff on my phone. You can make it read out loud, which like doesn't work for these kinds of situations, because I also have dyslexia and I mess up on intros constantly. So yes,
thank you. Totally it was actually, this entire thing was scripted, wasn't it? Because we wanted to highlight imperfection. We wanted to highlight that we all make mistakes. We wanted to also make a little separate side gig about dyslexia, which will be another episode. And my first episode in 2021, I talked to John Gomez, also from the West Coast. Maybe there's something in the water. He and I talked about being creatives and attention regulation, otherwise known as ADHD. But I would just say to you, Nina, maybe we could just digress, because that's what we do.
Totally.
Being a person with some reading difficulty, where reading doesn't come as easy to us as it might to others, what are some of those practical hacks that you might offer young adults, professionals, or high schoolers or junior high schoolers or kids in school?
I think number one, make enough money to have somebody read your stuff, because that for me, and also like a lot of men have wives, not all of them, but some men have wives. A lot of times wives fall into that role, and sometimes the gender roles don't always play out that way for women. So I hire people to edit my stuff. And so for me, that is one of the biggest accommodations. And for like my book that I'm writing, like I do like the first draft, and then I do the second draft, and then someone looks at it every single time just to clean it up as I go. So that's one. And then also I have on my phone, it's an app called Read to Go, and it works with bookshare.org. And bookshare.org is like a depository of books that you can download and read for free once you're a member. You have to join for like $65, and then you renew every year for like $45. I probably have that totally wrong because I'm dyslexic. I don't remember the price, but you can download as many books as you want to and read them on your phone. And for me, I read at like 300 words a minute on my phone. Without that, I read at 110 words a minute. So I don't fall asleep when I read. I don't have to read it over and over and over again. So there's lots of really great things. Also, there is an app called Voice Dream that you can download PDFs and read those. And that's super cool because you can put in work documents and stuff like that.
I'll share. I mean, I'm going to go have some new subscriptions to pay, except the only difference is you said you got to be rich enough to be able to pay for all these apps and all these assistants and all these editors. I'm going to share a couple free ones because I'm not in that position that you're in, Nina, because I haven't written my first book or my second book.
Also, rich enough in the Bay Area means that you have rent control. Like that's like rich is it's like rich enough meaning that you can pay your friend $15 an hour to do the editing. So like rich is this is Bay Area talk of like, I'm not starving and I have a little bit of extra. So that's what I meant by that.
Totally. Well, listen, if you're not rich enough and you don't have rent stabilized situation, you're definitely in trouble. But we're going to keep it clean. So on the free side of things, I would just share Nina's tips and only add to them. Number one, most of your phones, if writing is difficult, spelling is difficult, our phones and our computers, I use Android, certainly it's also true on Apple, on iOS, and on the laptops, dictation is an incredible thing. So obviously, if you have a speech difference that makes that difficult, there are many people working on that. We're involved in that as well, helping Siri and helping Google with the ability to listen to spoken word that might have variations, that might include people that have speech differences. But overall, leveraging dictation for those that can be an incredible tool, not only to control your computer, I don't do that, but I do find it helpful to say things over and it just transcribes the whole thing. It just says the whole thing, types it out for you. You can put in periods and things like that. It's also a safe way to send messages when you're on the move. I would double down on what Nina said. Another app that I like is Pocket. Pocket is a free app. You can save any website, and instead of reading it, built into the app, it'll read any article for you. So it's a way to collect articles, and then you can choose to read them later or listen to them read to you, and it's free. You'll notice a theme in everything I'm sharing, free. And last but not least, I just want to share one professional nugget. For people who think about dyslexia, often people think of, oh, the letters are moving. Things are moving all over the place. And it's not always like that. There are different types of dyslexia. Some people have that sort of thing where it's a visual processing thing where their eyes do not send the signal to the brain and the signal does not get processed in a way that everything is clear and everything is static. And that's kind of like the classic one. Some people have that difficulty, and sometimes there are ways to work with that in specific ways. Some things include visual eye training and things like that. There are other types of people with dyslexia, which I fit into, where the letters are all standing still, but my mind, for some reason, when I'm reading, the language side of the processing. So my eyes work, I get the signal, I get the image, but the way my brain processes that language is very different than when I'm listening. And when I'm listening, I'm operating at good enough. And when I'm reading, it's a lot less than that, or it's a lot more effortful. So I think being savvy about understanding what you're dealing with is very important. You're speaking from California. Again, politics aside, you're governor, right? Gavin Newsom is a person with dyslexia. There's so many examples of people who have made it and made it big. And if you want to learn more, understood.org is my favorite site. And they even have simulators if you want to see what it's like to have these different disabilities. And what's beautiful about that site, just again, because of our headliner, it goes through the age ranges. So you can learn about not only young children and school-age children, but high schoolers, college-age students, and adults living with learning differences. And there's so much there. So I highly recommend understood.org. And we're just getting started.
Well, and understood.org is an amazing site. They have so much, and they have role models on there too. So that, like, it's so important that we see ourselves when we're kids as the adults that we may grow into. So I think that's an important thing too.
Fabulous. So we got the bio messed up, but it was mostly accurate. And you also left off, I think, really special that you were part of the inauguration process ceremony. Online, of course. Hopefully soon we'll be dancing in the White House together. But what I always start off with is, what would you like people to know that maybe isn't in the bio, but is meaningful to you?
Let's see. I think what I probably want people to know is that I've been doing comedy now for 11 years. And that was always my dream, to be a comic. Like, I've loved comedy longer than I've stuttered, because I started to stutter when I was 7 or 8, and I found comedy even before that. And so it's something that I've just always loved, and wanted to be a comic when I was in middle school, high school. And then the dream died because I was like, I'm 17. I don't see anybody on TV in 1990 who stutters other than Stuttering John, but he wasn't doing stand-up at the time. And so I was like, I can't do that. And so dream died, picked it up 20 years after that, or whatever the math is, and have been doing it ever since. And a big part of why I started was my experience at a stuttering conference, and just kind of having yourself reflected back, just like I said earlier, was so important for me in my development. And that was the thing that helped me to get on stage. And I've been doing it ever since.
I recently listened to a podcast with Tim Ferriss interviewing Jerry Seinfeld about his craft and his longevity, right? Like, it's pretty unheard of. How many people do you know, comedians, that do what they do at such a high level for years? Sadly, that's not the trajectory of many great, funny people. What would you say? I'm sure you faced the average, challenges of a comedian, which is not an easy path to go. And then I'm sure there were some extra ones. You could maybe shed some light on like what some of the unique things as a woman, as a person who stutters, as a person with other learning differences. And what were some of the things you leveraged that helped you keep yourself strong, keep your head on, keep your heart on, keep the passion alive, and go through the ups and downs that are part of that process?
I mean, I think the first thing is that I love it. And I don't think people should get into this unless they absolutely love it. Because you like, if you just want to get famous, there's other ways to get famous. Like this is a craft, and I feel that you should work on your craft constantly. And I think for me as a person who stutters and who has dyslexia, because remember that I have to memorize the joke, and then I have to deliver the joke, and the memorization of it, a lot of times when you have a learning disability, there's that part. And so a lot of times I am I don't want to say disfluent, it's the other word, and this is part of my LD. It's like I am I'm trying to get out the sentence like I am now, and then the stuttering is on top of that. So there's like multiple processes going on. And when I write a joke, or when I write new material, I don't think like, oh, am I gonna stutter on this word? Like there's one phrase that I say, like I have one new joke that I say, akimbo, like akimbo, like apart. That's such a great word. I'm gonna stutter through that, but I want to use that word. And so I don't necessarily find that out until I get on stage. So I think what I am different from a lot of my peers who have been in it for 11 years is I go to a lot of open mics because I need to see how the joke's going to come out of my mouth. And then I need to work on timing on top of that. And I think one thing about me is I don't have a lot of throwaway lines, because I'm like, if it doesn't work, I'm not going to keep it. And I think there's also that economic part of us who's a stutter, who are like, okay, what I say can sometimes be a challenge. So I'm going to make sure that it's really important. It's really, really important. And in this case, it's like, I'm going to make sure that this really works, which I kind of just need to have a few throwaway lines. And that's okay. I think there's that I'm kind of harder on myself, that everything has to be really funny. And I don't give myself the flexibility that I think some comics do. So that's just a couple things. And then also I have people in the audience who, I live in the Bay Area near Berkeley. People like to kind of virtue signal with their applause and their reaction. So sometimes I get people giving me pity moans when I'm doing my stuttering stuff, which like they think they're being allies. You're not being an ally if you pity moan me. And if you don't give me that sympathy throughout the day and only on stage, that's messed up. So don't do that.
Can you just demonstrate both visually and for those that are listening only, what are you talking about, the pity moan? I'd love to see the pity moan. So I'm up there, I'm just going to put it on. This is a faux stutter, but Nina G could be the audience. I'll be the pretend comedian headlining. Wow. So it's great to be here. I'm gonna be taking some extra time today because I stutter.
Oh, and they all look at their friends. And my joke on it is like, I love sympathy just like all of you. I don't know why it has to be in the middle of my act, because it's not like when I go to Starbucks and I order my drink and the barista says, is that Nina with 5 N's? Where's my pity moan then? because that's the whole thing is like, now's not the time. And if you really want to do something and put something into action, cool, pity moan me. But if you're not, let's try to listen to what I'm saying and my punchlines and enjoy this and laugh.
What would you appreciate? What's the, either what have you seen that you appreciate, or what would you wish for from that audience member when you kind of get into it?
You know, if somebody is really sincere about it, that's cool. I think sometimes what they do, what I like is when I do that joke, then someone will pity moan me when I make a joke, like a sexual joke or something. And I won't do that joke now because you told me not to. But
Yeah, I just want to
like,
say, if you think Nina's funny, I've been told there's a whole nother routine that she can do. So you're just getting a piece of it. But she did agree that this was going to be rated G. It's only 7 in the morning that she came on. You know, in Pacific time, not everybody is wired like Nina G. And we know that the audience comes in all stripes and sizes and ages, and we wanted this to be family friendly. But again,
yes.
Nina can do that. And she can also do highly entertaining, belly laughing stuff. So I've been told.
Yes, yes. And that's like, you know, that's the thing is that like, I think what I love about comedy and what people like Paul Mooney, who just passed away, who was an African American comic who wrote for Richard Pryor. There's people like him who can educate on social issues while also making people laugh. And that is, I think, a tool of comedy that can be used in that way. So I would want people to listen to what I'm saying, not how I'm saying it. Also, to not over appropriate my experiences. Like when I start out a joke and the premise is something bad and then I bring it to something funny, it's okay to go on that journey. And, you know, if you leave there and want to be a stuttering activist, I'm cool with that. That is the ultimate goal. But that's, you know, pretty rare. So.
Very cool. Can you tell us that? I think that's really delicate, right? I think comedians get certain license. Like, for example, recently, Elon Musk was on Saturday Night Live. And it was a big deal for a lot of reasons. And it was interesting the way that everything went down. But one of the big things, and again, like him, love him, hate him, we're going to put that aside for a moment. He said on national television, he took ownership that some of his quirks are related to the fact that he has what he called Asperger's. And that was a big thing to say that on that stage. There were other parts of the routine and of the show that I thought were a little bit off, including, did you catch the piece that I posted about?
No, I don't think
Did
so.
I stutter?
Oh,
there was a skit
no.
that he was not even in, where the comedians had written in this piece, Did I Stutter? It was one of the other skits in that evening show. So I thought it was interesting that on the one hand, here we are putting Asperger's on Saturday Night Live, which is good, right? It's a wonderful thing to kind of take away that stigma and put it out there. And as you said, growing up as a girl, aspiring to be on the big stage, there were no comedians who stuttered that you saw. So representation was sorely lacking. And on the other hand, in the same show, the use of a certain phrase, which is very, I don't know even the right word, I'm gonna let you talk about that, but I just wanna highlight that as a sensitive point where comedians get licensed to say things you wouldn't say to your boss, right? And so you can say things that are edgy, that are even provocative, right? Where does that line get crossed? So let's say there's another comedian gets on stage, tells the same joke you told, but you could tell it because you're a woman who stutters. And if he said it, it would be considered chauvinistic, misogynistic, and anti whatever the other words would be. I'm really interested in that nuance and guidelines on that from your point of view.
You know, and I think part of it is, and what I've learned from this, is if there's some love behind it, it's okay to say. And for example, I've had people introduce me and they don't know me, and I do my act, and then they come back with some super hacky, stuttering joke. And there's a few that are kind of like the go-tos there. And that I'm not.
Can we get to those later? Can we get to those? I want to hear those later.
It would have to be after this.
Oh, got it. It's the other part of the show. Got it.
Yeah. But then I have sometimes people will do it in a very, very affectionate way. And I've had some comics who afterwards will just do something like na 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 Nina, like in the Chia Pet song, like, and I know that it's teasing me in a way that is kind of equal. And so there's that. Also, I have a friend who when I work with him, and we work a lot under the Comedians with Disabilities Act, and I do that with Mean Dave and Michael Beers, among others. And Mean Dave will say after my set, he'll say, "What can I say about Nina that wouldn't take her longer to say?" And it's funny, it's good, it's unique, and also we have a relationship where he can do that. And I think that is the thing, is what is the relationship? And also, have you had that talk? Because I've had that talk with him, and I've had the talk with others, like, this is okay, this is not. I also think that it's, if I tease you, you can tease me back. And I have a chapter in the book about when I performed with Dave Chappelle, because he was hosting an open mic that I was lucky enough to be on. And Dave Chappelle is like major influence, like just what he's done around race issues. I wanted to do around disability issues. So he's a great inspiration for me. And so I was very honored to perform with him. And I made fun of him a little bit before he got back on stage, because I knew it was going to come. And he had previously, I had seen him live, and he made fun of me in the audience. So I responded to that, which was like a year after, like it was, or like 2 years after. So he had no idea. And then I was like, something like, screw you, Dave, but I said some other word, for making fun of me. And then he came back on stage and he made fun of me. And so it was a peer-to-peer thing. And so I think that is one of those things that is so important, that we have some agency in this. Because I think a lot of times when a disability is talked about, especially in the media, we lack that agency. And a lot of times, like, there's a saying in the disability community, which is nothing about us without us. And we need to be both the writers and the actors and the producers and everything, so that our voices can be heard in an unfiltered way. And that's why it's so exciting to be doing comedy now, because you can have that in unfiltered way, because of YouTube, because of situations like this. So it's just a great time to be around for all this.
Incredible. Well, before we got on, we discussed how all the bullet points and all the talking points we wanted to get to, and then we said, let's just roll with it. But I did pull up one of the bullet points that you raised just yesterday on social, and I wanted to go there because I think it's something that everybody can really relate to in one way or another. And I also just want to riff off and amplify what you said. You know, what was the line in the community? You can say any.
Nothing about us without us.
Nothing about us without us. That was a quick blank out there. So nothing about us without us. And I think I just want to proudly and strongly state that the whole Transcending Stuttering project, okay, whether it's the training for SLPs, whether it's the experiences for people who stutter, is all about that. And so the input and the learning is coming from people who identify as professionals, people who identify as people who stutter, learning and listening to each other. And then you have the select few who embody both, and they get it, you know, from both sides, and they really provide tremendous perspective and insight. And when we can get out of our own little heads and we can see ourselves, have that ability to have self-observation, and then also the safety of getting feedback from others. I think comedians are very courageous people. Some people think comedians are a bunch of quacks and a bunch of flakes, but like, how many of us would get up in front of a stage, in front of an audience, and as Seinfeld says it, like, you have a live feedback loop, you know, like there's no delay there and there's no waiting for the poll to come in. He also has a great joke from the original Seinfeld episode, and I always butcher it. You want to do it better than me, about the fear of public speaking? Do you deliver this one well? Do you want me to?
I forget what it is. Remind
Okay,
me.
that must have been a moment. It's only 7 in the morning.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for sure. And if you don't know this one is awesome. But I'm basically saying I'm not confident in my delivery here, especially in the presence of Nina G. But I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to be courageous. Here we go. So he says, you know, more than the fear of heights, more than arachnophobia, more than any other fear, human beings across the board have a fear of public speaking. It's greater than the fear of dying. So there's all kinds of fears out there, but public speaking is fear number 1, even above the fear of death itself. Which means that if you find yourself at the funeral, most people would prefer to be in the casket than giving the eulogy.
Eulogy.
There you go. So
Yeah.
the fact that comedians get on the stage and do this all the time, and the feedback is intense, it's not just public speaking, it's like public speaking on speed, is remarkable. So all the more so, but it's something we can all relate to. I relate to it, imposter syndrome. And I'll just read what you wrote and we can just like reflect on that. Is that cool?
Yes, cool.
So you commented like, maybe we could touch on this today. And I was like, 100%. Here we go. Something I recently noticed about myself. This is Nina G's post. Imposter syndrome has just always been there. From the time I was in disbelief that I got an A- in high school geometry to being in grad school. Comedy's been no different, perhaps even more intense because of my relationship to comedy. I so badly wanted to be a comedian, but taking 20 plus years to get on stage, there was always self-doubt before I got on. I just learned to accept the thoughts that I would have, that it would take a while before I would, I just had to accept my thoughts that I would have while waiting for my sets. My brain would tell me, you don't belong here. You're not a comedian. Luckily, many lesser comedians had always reminded me otherwise, other comedians. Recently, after 11 years of these thoughts coming to me, I've had a slight change in my thinking. Because of the pandemic, my thought has turned to, I don't belong, to, I'm lucky to be here. Just that subtlety from I don't belong to, I'm lucky to be here. Ever so slight reframe, which has reminded me of the gratitude that I have for every audience and every stage, no matter the size or the man making obscene hand gestures in front. I'm really lucky to be here. And I'm Uri Schneider saying, I'm glad I'm not the man making obscene hand gestures, just me. Yeah, so
No,
you wanna unpack that?
Happened last week. So there you go.
So what does that all mean? What does that all mean?
You know, I think there's just, and not to get all Michael Sugarman on you, but there are those automatic.
Wait, hold on. You can sprinkle Sugarman on me all day.
Awesome.
I'm not sure we have to make excuses for not getting Michael Sugarman.
Because
I didn't know that was a verb.
Yeah, see, here in Oakland, where it all started, yes, it's a verb. And so Michael always talks about the reframing and the cognitive and CBT, which I think is really important for both psychology oriented the therapists and speech oriented the therapists to understand that. And how do you think about your stuttering, and or also as a clinician, how do you think about stuttering? I think is all important. And so for me, the automatic thought that I would get almost every time I went on stage was this self-doubt that I should not be there, that I'm not a real comic. What am I doing? Like, and it's just something that I was like, oh, I know that thought. I'm just going to let that go. But then something happened, and this happened on Friday night. I was hiding behind a food truck, waiting to go on stage at a show because it's an outside show. And we're doing shows in very strange places. And this is in downtown Oakland at the Gasser Gardens. Awesome show at this setup. And I'm there behind a food truck looking at the audience because they're kind of a tight audience. I was like, okay, I'm gonna look at their faces so I'm desensitized before I get on stage. And while I'm doing that, and while the crowd is very cold, I was like, oh, I'm so lucky that I get to be here. And it's a very slight reframe because it's still like external locus of control. Like it's still not like I deserve to be here because my material is so good and my voice is so unique. It's not that. Maybe I'll get there one day or maybe not. But the fact that my automatic thought is I'm lucky to be here is such a it's a slight thing, but it's just a more positive way to look at that. I think for those of us who have imposter syndrome and, being in special ed when I was in high school and then going into grad school, eventually, I knew imposter syndrome well. And being a dyslexic, knowing that more of us are probably in prison than they are in doctoral programs, that's really scary. And also, there's all kinds of issues that come with that, and imposter syndrome being part of that. So yeah, that's just a little bit of the reframe that I recently had.
Wow, there's so much. Two stories are coming up for me. First of all, I live with that imposter syndrome all the time, so it's nice to have good company, especially company like yours. And I would also like to share the following story. So it touches on bias, it touches on stigma, it touches on what you're talking about, it touches on, I think it ticks all the boxes, except that it's not very funny. It ends with tears and hugs and laughs, which is a full day in my opinion. When you got those three things happening. I think Dickie V said that, but basically a kid comes into the office, African-American kiddo, and parents said he has autism and he's not particularly verbal, and they came in with his sister, and comes in with his big sister, and in comes a very regal looking Black woman, and she looks like she's the daughter of someone who is like a diplomat from one of the countries in Africa. And behind her comes in a man who looks like he just came out of the NFL Combine with long dreadlocks, wearing distinctly different dress than her. She was dressed to the nines. It was a Sunday morning in the office. We go to greet them at the door. So at that time, there was a desk in the office and a chair here and a chair there, and chairs for everybody, and a carpet area for kids to sit and play, and usually we'd be sitting with them. At this time, the chair behind the desk is clearly the chair of someone who works there. So it's me and it's another therapist there. We welcome them in. And this 6'5" guy who's not dressed to the nines, he's dressed in like a t-shirt and sweatpants, and let's just say he was physically imposing. And I don't think it truly had anything to do with the fact that he was Black. I think it had a lot to do with the fact that he was physically imposing, and he walks into the room and sits in what would be my chair. Like there are 4 chairs on one side of the table and there's 1 chair on that side, and he makes himself comfortable in that chair. So the intimidation factor is really there. I'm not feeling comfortable. My job is to make others feel comfortable in this space, and I'm feeling uncomfortable, which is unusual because I'm generally comfortable with people. And a whole story goes off in my head, right? Of like uncouth and unsophisticated and so on. And again, I don't think much of this had to do with the fact that he was Black, but I'm also not going to take that off the table. There were plenty of data points here which were telling me this might not be an easy situation, and that the dynamics are telling me this guy is a bit confrontational or something. And the story goes on, and I say to Mom, well, what do you do? And she tells me she's in politics. And I say to Dad, what do you do? And he says, oh, I do freelance. And he has this like very unsophisticated articulation, shall we say. And then as they're talking about the child, I make sure to keep checking in with them. And I said, why are you here? I'll try to accelerate the story, but it's really good. They said, well, we've been around to a lot of neurologists and hospitals, and they told us this and they told us that. And we really think our kid has more to him. these doctors are telling us they've tested him and they've done this, and they keep giving us the riot act and all these acronyms of, one of my favorites is ASDNOS, autistic spectrum disorder not otherwise specified. That's got to be the dumbest thing to like say, I got it, I know what it is. It's this not otherwise specified now. That's like probably the least helpful thing you could help anybody demystify. So that might be a starting point to then unpack, but left alone. So everyone has given them lectures and they said, we just feel there's more to him. And we heard you might take some time to help us discover that and bring that out, or tell us we're out of our minds. I said, well, tell me a little bit more. And Dad takes a turn. And this dad who I've described to you starts to unpack how he's a freelance writer. He's a ghostwriter. And he's also an active, hands-on, stay-at-home dad. And he's consistently engaging this child and his daughter in culturing them and providing them the values and the engagement and the intention and the enrichment. And I'm like losing it. It's already amazing. And I said, what's your story? And he says to me, well, I grew up in the South, and I grew up, they thought I had a learning disability. And so I had an entire educational career in a special ed classroom with people far less able than me. But we were all bunched into this garden variety classroom of people with things ranging from children with Down syndrome, people with autism, people with reading difficulty, attentional difficulty, language processing difficulty. And there I was, and my whole life, I knew I didn't belong there. I knew I didn't belong there, but I've been put into this box. And I want to make sure that my kid doesn't get put in that box. And so when he walked in the room, I wasn't wrong to pick up what I picked up. He was emoting this antagonistic attitude towards professionals who were telling him his kid is broken, his kid won't make it. He knows what his kid's got because he's loving him up to pieces. Mm-hmm. Well, then Mom tells me, oh, wow, it's his birthday. So the man who walked in, who at first intimidated me, or I let myself be intimidated by him, but hung in, curious enough to listen, open enough to leave space for the story to emerge, made me cry. Then we shared some laughs, and then we shared a big hug, and I said, happy birthday, you made my day. Hope you have a great day too. And so that's the story of this young man. But I just wanted to, piggybacking off your story about that imposter syndrome, for him to emerge from there and to change his identity and to feel like he belonged. Like, that's really hard. To strengthen that inner narrative. I love what you shared, and I love how you reframed that. And I think the subtlety, I'll just finish on this and pass to you. The subtlety is when you try to say it too strong, there's something inside you that won't hear it, won't take it. So even though it's like a halfway line, what you said, it's so brilliant because the subtlety is something that you're ready to swallow, and your like resistance doesn't get triggered. So it's actually something you can flex. I'm lucky to be here. I think that's beautiful.
Well, and to highlight one of the things what you said is that, like, I really feel that therapists, whether they're in speech or psychology or any of the helping professions, really need to look at advocacy and activism, because there was like who was that dad to trust you? Like, who the hell are you to be trusted when there is a system that has segregated kids of all colors and different disabilities, and how much we need to understand that history, because speech and language and cognition, whatever it is, it's not just that. There is a society of oppression that has gone into that and into our education around that and into the media. And I really encourage speech and language pathologists to do, like, your work is not in the office. Your work is also outside the office, and it's advocating at schools and using your privilege in, as a therapist when that kid's in school, to say, I call BS on this, but you say it in a professional way, and it is your
or not. I by the way, you could just say that.
Yes. That okay, good. And also to use that privilege to help understand, um, like, or to help educate people in online, on social media, when someone puts up, oh, this is such an inspirational thing, look, this kid sang, he sang and then he was fluent, and oh my god, and it's like, oh no, it's just a brain trick, like this is not helpful. um, so to educate the media, educate others, and to step out of that one role, because your role is to make life better for people that you work with. And that may mean that it surpasses just that clinical interaction.
I'm going to save all the things that just came to my mind and my heart for another live immediately following this, which will also be like a solo cast. So stay tuned for that. But I just want to say that was awesome, and just amplify that my hope and prayer is that, yes, the greatest course I took was sociology of disability. It was such an eye-opening course for me to understand the societal shifts and attitudes and understanding, and the continuing studies that are evolving and emerging as to when did we even think of things as disability? Like, before the Industrial Revolution, if someone had a different ability, they made the shoes and they sold a pair of shoes. But then when things shifted to like hourly wages, you had to work as fast as the person next to you, and you suddenly had to be measured by certain, objective metrics. And there's so much more. But I want to encourage everybody to dive into that. And I also want to allow all of us to hit the reset button on the relationship between those on every side of this. Right. So I think, like Nina said, those of us on the professional side to understand and own the history of our profession. Speech correction was what we were called at one point. There's a reason why there's that culture and there's that thinking. It didn't come from nowhere for us, as well as the people we served. There's a reason there's a certain feeling of caution of like, wait a second, I'm not sure I want to be corrected. And then on the other side as well, for people on the other end to realize, hey, maybe there are some people that actually have a good heart and they also have a good head, and they just happen to have professional credentials, which means they have accountability, and they're waving the flag of the best of what the profession has to offer. So I think if we can hit the reset button and be champions to create new possibilities of thinking and understanding and speaking up for each other and using our privilege on every side of that, it's not a one-sided thing. Everybody has a place to speak up. And all of us are reminded that we are the other in some space. So if we can all step up and realize where we hold that privilege and be a champion for the other, and the other can do the same in return, the world's going to be a beautiful place.
Yep, exactly.
Your book, Nina, let's spotlight the book. What is, what is one thing that you wanted to really shine through the book, a message that you wanted readers and the world to get from you? And then maybe the second point would be, as any artist, sometimes the thing you thought was going to be the grand slam, something else was found to be very resonant. It was a surprise to you that something that you thought was like a lesser point turned out to be really highlighted and resonated with people. I don't know if you felt that, but I'd love to give you a chance to just kind of tell us a teaser, and people should go and get it, read it.
Read it, please get it. And it's available everywhere. You should get it at your independent bookstore, but it's also on Amazon.
By the way, you should do an Audible. You should do an Audible for so many reasons. For those of us who are dyslexic, and to listen to it in the beautiful cadence of your speech.
Yes, I would love to do that. And I was thinking about that. Then I started to write another book. So it was, and also, stuttering dyslexics don't always like to read out loud, but I refuse to have anybody else read my book out loud. So that's part of the problem.
We got to get it done. We got to get it done.
Got to get it done. We got it. Yes. Also, the book is on bookshare.org, so it can be downloaded for free and read out loud. I think for me, there were a few things that I wanted to do in the book. I think I started to write the book when I saw there not being too much ability to have a nuanced conversation about anything, especially online. And so I was like, okay, it's not gonna work to express this in my everyday life. I want to take some time and really draw this out, and to have it cross different people's opinions. So people who stutter, people who don't stutter, men, women, the whole thing. I mean, I would love for every woman who stutters to have this book. Like that would be my ultimate goal. And that's 250,000 of us in America or something like that. So I would love for that to happen, but whatever. But I think one of the things that I wanted to show was how community impacts the individual in a really positive way. Because
I'm just gonna, I want you to hold your thought. I just had an impulse.
Yes.
You got your thought, don't lose it. I want anyone that's listening, anyone that wants to share this, there's a lot of wisdom bombs that Nina G has dropped. If you identify something you loved, you drop a comment on the Facebook feed, okay? And Nina will pick from those 3 of her favorites. I will personally drop ship you a copy of her book. How's that? So just pull out the best comments from here and we'll help Nina G not reach the numbers she was hoping for because I can't fund that alone, but you can replicate this. I will personally drop ship 3 books to people who put out, the comment and at what minute you heard it, and we'll use it for sharing on social media to get Nina G's words out there to the world, as well as getting her book into your mailbox.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so like the thing for me is community, because after I went to the conference for people who stutter, and this was the NSA conference in like 2010, I think, or 2009. And it was the one in Arizona. And it was my first conference in like 15 years. Like I went when I was 17, and then I went, or I guess it was more than that. It was 19 years. And I went when I was 19, but just as a volunteer. Then I went to this one more as a professional. But I went coming back really knowing how much stuttering has personally impacted me. And the way that I understood that was being around other women who stutter and realizing how much space I was not taking up. Because women are socialized not to take up space. And when you stutter, you are socialized not to take up space, no matter what your gender is. And how much like guilt that I had. And this is partly like my own Italian Catholic caregiving stuff, that I felt guilty about having to put people through my speech and through what I was going to say. So I would minimize myself. And through that, I realized how much I internalized that, not only in my speech, but just in who I was, and holding back in multiple ways. And when I came back from the conference, I was like, okay, I'm going to make some changes in my life. I made those changes in my life, kind of established a whole new life. And I started comedy 6 months after that. And that was a direct result of comedy is taking up space and like almost forcing yourself on people some nights if they want it or not. And I think comedy's been also a good exercise for me to bring that back into my personal life. And, it's art imitating life, and being a better self-advocate in my personal life too. And showing that in the book.
Amazing. And what's been a surprise? What's something people have like really, I don't know, is there something you've gotten some really feedback that because I find that people will say things like, wow, it really hit me when you said whatever. And I'm thinking, I either don't remember saying that, or that was definitely like number 16 on my top 20 list.
Yes. Yeah, I think like I was talking to a comic the other day that she sent the book to her sister, and how the sister just kept on texting her other, so this sister who stutters contacted her other sister and was just texting her like, oh my God, I relate to this. This is so true. And it's just not me. This is an experience that other people have. And like, this is a woman that I would have not had any connection with otherwise, other than it's my friend's sister in some other country. But it's just nice to know that we don't see our experiences as people who stutter in the popular culture. Traditionally, I have a Porky Pig back there that Michael Sugarman gave me. There's a story about that, which I won't share right now just because of time. But like, those are the images we've had. We haven't had realistic ones. And so I'm just so happy that somebody's able to find part of their experience in the book.
Not only in the book, Nina, but for some people, thinking the funniest person who stutters was Porky Pig, and he wasn't very flattering, and his belly was popping out. I'm going to share with you a comment that was just dropped.
No pants. Like, that's
no pants.
No pants.
We said we're going to keep it clean. We're just keeping it above the belt. But yes, no pants. No pants. Leave the rest to your imagination. So Nina G, I want to tell you something. Your book rocked a lot of people's worlds. And in terms of getting the story out there, and for young people, especially young women, but any young people, it's invaluable. But I'm going to tell you something right here from one of your friends, but not just a friend, the impact that you make just by being you. And I think this speaks to the courage that we should all flex against our imposter syndrome voice that says like, I really should, probably don't. Dave Greenan dropped this comment right now live as you're talking. Nina's been an influence in my life for years due to my stutter and getting the courage up to pursue a comedy career. She is such a gracious person. And I think that I don't think you became a comedian to be an inspiration.
No, in fact, I had a saying in the beginning that was the exact opposite of that, which I won't say, but yes.
Just imagine for yourself. But I think what I want to highlight is like just doing your thing. Viktor Frankl says you can't chase success, it finds you. And I think just doing your thing, doing your craft, and how Nina said at the beginning when I said, how did you persevere, right? Career in comedy is hard enough. And then you got these other things stacked on top of that, kind of different cards that have been dealt, and you're playing a hand that doesn't appear to be as even or as similar to the people that you're competing against, and everyone's struggling. Everyone's having a hard time pushing forward, but just doing your thing, not trying to be a role model. You become one, you become a light, you become an example, all of us, if we just kind of have that courage to be and to do our thing authentically. And for me, I'll just say very openly and honestly, you and so many people who stutter, I think that's part of what transcending stuttering is that it's not just to help people who stutter. Those of us that get to know others who stutter, come to appreciate and be inspired, not in a patronizing way, but in a really wholesome way of seeing humans who are stepping up to the plate, stepping up against fear, stepping up over their boundaries and over the limits that they've put on themselves, that others have put on them, that society has put on them, and seeing them raise their hand, seeing them step up to the mic, seeing you do your thing has helped me step up to the mic right here. Like, I wouldn't be doing this if not for the courage that I've seen in others. So I want to thank you, and Dave is thanking you. And I just want to, anyone that's watching or listening probably says thank you. And I just want to encourage everybody to do your thing, because when you do your thing, you don't worry about what other people are looking at and thinking of you. If you just know you're in your flow, you're doing what you're here to do. You're here to do what people do, and you push against all those artificial plastic voices. Not only are you going to be happier, you might even do something preposterous, which is what Nina G has done. Instead of the opposite, she has become an example, a role model, an influencer. And just want to give you a chance to leave any parting wisdom, but you just being you is the wisdom, is the example. But any messages you want to squeeze in, it's your chance. The mic is open, no time limit.
And I think that whole thing around inspiration is so important to talk about, because the way that you talked about inspiration is how we need to talk about inspiration, because so many times around a disability issue or around stuttering, people are like, oh, you're such an inspiration. Like, once at a library, I was giving a talk. Woman comes up to me afterwards, and it wasn't even a comedy talk. Like, I was talking about adaptive technology. And she comes up to me and she's like, you are such an inspiration. If I talked like you, I wouldn't talk at all. And I was like, no, that's not the point. And so many times there is disability images out there that inspire inspiration. And the inspiration is oftentimes like, oh, at least I'm not that. Oh, if they could do it, then I could do it too because they don't have legs. So I could do that. It's like, no, that person is talented and ambitious and you're not. So like, don't think that you can do it just because just because you have legs and they don't. No, that's not the case. And so I like that the inspiration is also stepping into a position that is changing the world. And I inspire you because at least I don't talk like her. Yeah, that's not the point. But if I inspire you to do comedy, and David, thank you for that. If I inspire you to help to change how other people that think about stuttering, I am cool with that. If I inspire you just to be less of a jerk to someone in your family who stutters, that's awesome too. But yeah, so that inspiration piece is inspire to change, not inspire for yourself.
Well, I'll just leave it there because nothing could say it better. I am going to come back on live and share some more stories. If you want to learn more, you can check it out at SchneiderSpeech.com/TSA. We have cohorts for speech language pathologists, professionals who are interested in being better guides, more attuned and more skilled in being there to be professional allies and guides for people who stutter. And we have cohorts for people who stutter. And the blog has all these conversations and show notes, and Nina can send me any and all links and previous shows and things that are, waist up for this blog post that we'll make for Nina, but there's a whole collection. But I just want to thank Nina G. We're right up there with President Biden. I mean, he had you at the inauguration. We got you for this episode. I've now been an opener for the headliner. Who knows what's next? I've got to work on my delivery on that Seinfeld line, but it's been a treat. And as someone else is commenting, one of our dear friends and shared friends, Tom from Florida, he says, I could listen to Nina all day. And what he means to say is, Uri, shut up and let Nina talk some more. So I just want to say it's been a treat. And I thank you for sharing your wisdom. And I encourage everybody, can we just get the book up here again? Everybody should get your book. Stutterer Interrupted, the comedian who almost didn't happen. And again, my promise is if you drop us your favorite lines from this episode, Nina will pick 3 and then we'll message you privately and I will drop ship you 3 copies. Maybe Nina's got something to add.
And what I'll do is I will sign those copies and send them to you, and then you do all the other stuff because I don't want to have to do that. So it may take a while. But yes.
You can choose to get Stutterer Interrupted express delivery, or we can do it with a couple stops, a couple, appropriate, if you know what I mean. So
we'll figure it out.
Check it out. It's also on all podcasts, all platforms, anywhere you want to listen. Transcending Stuttering and Big Things Are Coming. Thank you, Nina G. It's been a treat.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.